What is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin because I do be reading. And today we are going to be talking about the latest romantasy book sensation, The Blood of Hercules. Now, you might be thinking this is a different, interesting location. This was the only free wall that I had in my apartment. I do have this breaker situation here that I was considering covering up. But it is magnetic, which is great because I have this here magnetic whiteboard. So I can just chill here. You can't really see it, but I'll bring it forward when it's needed. And I have some other visual aids that we will go through as we go along. Now, Blood of Hercules is a new adult romantasy book that came out in August. It was self-published, but then very quickly got picked up for traditional publishing. I honestly don't even remember how this got on my radar. It was not something that I was originally planning on reading. I am quite wary and weary of the romantasy subgenre. It's just a constant state of disappointment. Romantasy feels like a subgenre that should really work for me as someone who loves both romance and fantasy. But what I'm finding from the romantasy books that I've been picking up and just what I've been hearing from other books that people have been reading is it's just, I'm finding that the fantasy and romance elements are very underdeveloped. The world building is underdeveloped. The plot is underdeveloped. The romance is underdeveloped. And it's just been a very frustrating experience. And I will say I didn't go into Blood of Hercules thinking it was going to be a new favorite, but I had maybe some middling expectations, I suppose. One, I was excited that it was for once not about fae. I feel like fae has really been the fantasy creature of the romantasy subgenre. I like Greek mythology in books, and I was intrigued because the author, Jasmine Moss, is someone who has a classics degree from undergrad, okay? And I thought, okay, maybe this means that this author knows a little some extra, you know? Quickly find out, not the case, but that all accumulated together to make me kind of interested. This was also described as why choose, and I'm not the biggest why choose reader. I guess I prefer if there's multiple people in a romance that it's poly, where everyone is together rather than just one person with multiple people, which honestly, I don't know that why, it feels like maybe this is more poly than why choose. I don't know. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. In any case, we'll get to that down the road. This might be a longer video. It probably is going to be a longer video. I wanted to kind of dress for the occasion. This is the best I could come up with. Well, not really this, but my snake earrings, and we'll understand why that's relevant a little bit later. So how this is gonna work is, first, I am going to give you a little background, a little history lesson about the world of Blood of Hercules. And then I will kind of walk you guys through the plot. This is going to be spoiler filled, okay? And then at the end, I'm going to talk about my thoughts. I mean, that's going to be sprinkled throughout, but at the end, I'll kind of wrap it up with all of my thoughts. Spoiler alert, I didn't like this book at all. So if you're someone that likes this book, if you're unable to listen to criticism of a book that you like, then I would kindly ask that you go ahead and just watch a different video. I don't think this video is for you. This is also, no hate to the author. I do kind of poke fun at the degree aspect. We'll get to that later. But yeah, if you like this book, that's fine. You know what? Everything is subjective. If you like it, you like it. That's great. I didn't, and I'm going to talk about why. And if you don't like that, then just, there are plenty of other videos out there in the world for you to watch. You don't need to be watching this one, okay? Let's get into it. Okay, so we are in, Earth. We're in Earth, and I feel like the kind of introduction of this, the background of this feels a little bit similar to Percy Jackson. So we have the gods. They're called Spartans. It seems like they're not actually like gods. We'll get to that. feel like I just keep saying we'll get to that. They're not gods, but they're like a being that is supposedly more intelligent, more advanced, more stronger, and has powers, is better than humans, okay? So we have the Spartans, started in Greece, moved to Italy, reminiscent of Greek and Roman empires. They're living their lives. There's like 100 immortals, Spartans. They're chilling. Humans show up, okay? And they look at the Spartans as gods. They're in awe of them. But then eventually, as they start to overpopulate and create their own civilizations and such, they turn on the gods. They start fighting with them. They're moving away from them, not really believing in them anymore. And then at this point, the gods decide to just remove themselves from the human world, and they go off to the Italian Dolomites. IDK. Is this supposed to be Olympus? I don't know. Are they like physically out of the human realm? I don't know. But they're no longer amongst the humans, okay? This is where we'll use my first visual aid, okay? Since you can't see it all the way over there, I'll bring it up. So we have the Spartans, as I said. They are immortal beings with powers. They're more advanced, yada, yada. Now, it says here 12 houses of Sparta. This is correct as of, I guess, present day in this world. We'll get to it. But we have division amongst the Spartans. There are two factions. We have the Olympian houses and we have the Chthonic houses. Now, the Olympian houses at some point in time had 50 houses. I will explain in a little bit why it is down to 12. Just kidding. 8? Okay. Sorry. I don't know how to count. Down to 8. So in the Olympian houses, we have the house of Zeus, Hera, Athena, Hermes, Poseidon, Demeter, Apollo, and Dionysus. Okay. The Chthonic houses, we have house of Ares, Hades, Artemis, and Aphrodite. Now you might be wondering, Jamila, can you explain to us what is the difference between the Olympic and Chthonic houses? Why is there this division? Why one god is in one house versus the other, or faction than the other? And to that, I would say I have no fucking idea. No clue. I don't understand why one is in one faction over the other. I don't understand where this division came from. It is not explained. I took the liberty of doing some research myself, mind you, very, very brief, limited research, and I looked up Chthonic. Okay. And from my, again, very limited understanding, Chthonic is a descriptor of proximity to the underworld. So gods such as Hades, Demeter, Persephone, those gods would be considered like chthonic gods. It kind of seems like a loosey-goosey descriptor. It kind of seems like, I don't know. I don't really understand it. If you're more familiar with this, I would actually love to hear your thoughts and some explanation in the comments. But it would seem, based off of my, again, very limited knowledge, that it would make sense for like a Hades to be a chthonic god, Demeter, maybe even Hermes. You know, he loves to travel. It's a very simplistic explanation of Hermes. Demeter, it makes sense that they would be chthonic gods. I don't really understand why Ares, Artemis, or Aphrodite would be up in here. I don't get it. And the book doesn't seem to care to explain that. So that's kind of where we are. I'm gonna put this back over here. So where we left off, the Spartans have removed themselves from the human world, and they've carried on like this until the turn of the 21st century. The turn of the 21st century brings war amongst the Spartans, okay? The chthonic gods decide that they're going to wage war on the Olympians. Why? Again, no explanation. I can only extrapolate based off of some other information that happens in the book. I think the chthonic Spartans view themselves as stronger and better than the Olympians, so perhaps that might be a reason why they decided to wage war on the Olympians. It's not explained to us. I don't know why at that moment they decided to. I don't know if that's something that might get explained a little bit later in the series. I'm not gonna find out because I'm not gonna carry on with this, but who knows? So the Chthonics decide to wage war, and so they're fighting for decades, okay? And that brings us to 2045. And I wanna pause real quick. I forgot to, okay. I'm recalling something. One division, actually, between the Olympians and the Chthonics, I'm remembering now. The Chthonics, their powers are like evil. Like their powers tend to be ones that cause harm to others. The Olympians tend to have powers that focus on like self-development, like they're strong, really intelligent, that like nicer powers. Okay, again, why that's the case, I don't know. But that makes a little bit more sense for the division, okay? Sorry, I forgot to explain that. That just came to me. But anyways, we're back to 2045. And this is why the 50 Olympian houses have been decimated, okay? We're down to 8. The Chthonics have lost a lot of people. The Olympians have lost a lot of people. They're in a bad shape. And they decide to call like a very shaky truce, okay? We fast forward 5 years, 2050, Titans. So I had to print these pictures in black and white because the computer room in my apartment complex charges for color. And quite frankly, I was not about to spend money on this. So it's in black and white. I don't know if you can quite see what this is, but these are the Titans from Hercules. And the reason why I decided to go with that, I guess, visual representation of the Titans is because they just seem like monsters, like not really intelligent, doesn't seem to really have a plan. Kronos, Gaia, who are they? So we're gonna put that here. I am using washi tape to hang it up because I don't have regular tape. So I don't know if you can see it. I feel like we should get a little bit closer. Hang on. I don't know if this is much better. And my big ass head is kind of covering things. I'm just gonna hang out over here. Hey. So they don't really seem to be like the Titans of Greek mythology, you know? So, and another thing is that they're like, Kronos, save us. Kronos. Oh, like, oh my Kronos. Like, listen, is he not a Titan? Like, what are we doing here? I don't understand the Titans. I don't get it. But I'm using the Hercules as Titans version as representation because that is what they feel like, okay? Okay, I'm gonna move over here. Titans come. The Spartans are like, it's time for us to reintroduce ourselves to the human world, okay? So the Olympians decide as reparations, the Chthonic gods are gonna be the ones who are gonna take care of the Titans. They're gonna deal with that. Okay, so they end up forming this thing called the Assembly of Death, and these are Chthonic warriors that go to Earth and fight the Titans. There's also some sort of gladiator thing called the Spartan gladiator, something or another. I don't know, but this is like entertainment where they like fight other Titans on TV and other Chthonic gods. I don't know. We don't really get to see that. It seems like that might be like more of a plot point for the second book. We don't really get to see that. So now the Spartans are like fully ingratiated into the human world. And it seems like they've kind of taken over. It kind of feels like it's an apocalypse. I don't understand. I really don't understand what's going on. What's going on in the rest of the world? I don't know either because, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So they do that. They're still fighting the Titans. We fast forward to 2090, okay? So 40 years after the Titans have run amok, as the muses would say. We are introduced to our main character. Her name is Alexis. You might be wondering, Jamila, this looks like Malia from Teen Wolf. And that is because that's who I was picturing while I was reading this. And there's an explanation for that. But let's start at 2090, okay? Alexis is 10 years old, okay? We are in a rural Montana. Alexis is living with foster parents, and they are awful. They're extremely poor. Alexis is getting abused by these foster parents, and she is not having a good time. It seems like the world has, again, it's very dystopian. It seems like the education system is really poor. It seems that a lot of people are living in poverty or are struggling to have access to food and stuff like that. What the American government's doing, I don't know. What the rest of the world is doing, again, I don't know. But Alexis does seem like she's getting made fun of, like, in school for being poor. So it seems like there's still some class differentiation going on. I don't know. She also doesn't really speak that much because she has a stutter. And there's a lot of actually like disability that gets brought up in this book. I don't think is handled very well, but she has a stutter, so she doesn't talk that much. She really keeps to herself, especially because, again, she is poor and really struggling under this abusive foster parent home. The foster parents are also like, there's like a thing that they mentioned that the foster parents are creating their special drink, which is water, moldy bread, and bleach.
Huh?
I don't know if they're using that as, like, to kind of make their own like bootleg alcohol, but bleach. And they're constantly drinking this. They haven't died. I don't understand. They're also selling this to people. I don't get it. It didn't make sense. Why not just moldy bread and water? What does the bleach add to this? I don't understand what's happening. But in this first chapter in 2090, Alexis is out running around in the fields next to the trailer park that she lives in, and she randomly discovers a snake. This snake's name is Nyx, and you're thinking, oh, like the goddess Nyx? I don't know. Nyx is a talking snake, except that only Alexis can hear and understand her, and no one can see her besides Alexis. They become besties, and Nyx is just her animal familiar pretty much for the rest of this book. Her role is comedic relief, but bad comedic relief. And also to encourage Alexis occasionally, whatever. Okay, so we have Nyx. Then, following chapter, I think like a year later, Alexis, I keep wanting to call her Malia, Alexis gets a foster brother. His name is Charlie. He is described as having bright yellow eyes. It seems that that is not a concern for anybody. And is that explained to us? No. Charlie doesn't speak. So they go, I'm gonna put him off here because he really actually doesn't even matter. Let me adjust. Okay. He doesn't really matter all that much. Charlie doesn't speak. So him and Malia go to the library and teach themselves sign language. So that's how they communicate. So she understands sign language. So does Charlie. Okay. We fast forward a little bit, maybe like 6 months, and Malia overhears her foster parents saying that they cannot afford to take care of Charlie anymore, so they're going to kill him. So Malia grabs him and runs to the bathroom and locks themselves in there, and they're pounding, trying to get in. And then a Titan shows up, and they're begging Alexis to open the door to get in because this Titan's coming, but she doesn't, because she's scared, and also fuck them. And her foster mother ends up dying, and the police show up eventually, and she says that it was her foster father. So he ends up going to jail. So now they don't have anybody. I also want to put in our first pin in foster mother's death. We'll come back to that. So now the three of them are there. Mind you, Charlie, he can't see Nyx. It's just really funny because Alexis is just like randomly talking to Nyx, and people are like thinking that she's talking to herself. So they're on their own now, right? They don't have any adult guidance or guardianship going on. They are staying at the trailer. The next day, though, some people show up and say, you can't live here anymore. Like, there was Titan activity. We have to condemn this trailer or something like that. And they're like, where do we go? We're 2 kids. He's like a year younger than her. So she's like 10 and he's like 9. They're like, where do we go? And they're like, IDK, you can't go here. Remember that they're foster kids. Where's the foster system? They can't place them in a new home? I'm confused, but they're just out on their own. They end up living in like a box. Like literally a box. And I'm like, this is a bit ridiculous. Anyways, we fast forward to 2099, something like that. 8 years have passed. She's 19, he's 18. She's in her final year of school, okay? And she is like tutoring people to get food vouchers so that she can feed them, but they're struggling, okay? She gets made fun of because she's really poor and all that stuff. So she's in her final year, and in final years, when you're 19, you take this exam, final exam. She takes this exam. She's really smart. She apparently is like a math genius out of nowhere because she taught herself math. I don't know. And she also is obsessed with these 2 19th century German mathematicians, a man and a woman. I can't remember what their name is, but she like ships them together and apparently writes fan fiction of them. I don't understand. There's also technology here. That's the thing that didn't make sense, amongst many other things. The Titans didn't show up until 2050, so you would think that there would be all of the technology that we have now in 2024 plus some from the additional 26 years forward in the future. But they only talk about having tech from like the early 2000s. I'm very confused about that. So she writes fanfic about them. There's also, I feel like this is a moment for me to read you some lines about that going-ons of this school. So there's a lot of this book is just her internal monologue, again, because she doesn't really speak to people besides Nyx. So she is, in class. It says, ignored the gaping emptiness in my stomach, since tutoring for other people's food vouchers barely kept us fed, and the Federation classified illegal child labor as work by anyone who had yet to take the Spartan merit test, which you take at 19. They said it was uncivilized to make kids work. And then in her head, she goes, hot take. You know what's uncivilized? Forcing homeless children to starve because they have no ability to provide for themselves. And this was a warning flag for me. Because I'm like, this kind of feels like conservative talking points to me a little bit. I don't know. But it's just wild for you to say a hot take. It's uncivilized to not allow children to work when they're homeless. And it's like, I think maybe the problem is that the foster system didn't place them with another family, that the government is not taking care of them. Anyways, that's one thing. And we're also, sorry, I'm going back a little bit. So I'm all over the place. So she's in class, right? And someone comes in and is like, oh my God, Achilles and Patro, which is Patroclus, but he goes by Patro apparently. They're on the TV fighting a Titan, and apparently these things get filmed for entertainment, and also they have like stats. It's really weird, but they're all crowded around this computer watching Patro and Achilles kill this Titan. And then this is where she talks about how other people, that there are websites that have more thought-provoking content on the Spartans, such as sketches of their naked private parts. And she goes, not that I'd look. She did look. She's okay. And the thing is, she's also okay. Sorry. There's so much to talk about. Like I mentioned, she writes fanfic. She's also seen these weird ass pictures. She's read fanfic, nasty, smutty fanfic of these guys, and she's also written smutty fanfic herself, and it just confuses me because, and this is where I go to why I picked Malia as representation, because if you've watched Teen Wolf, you know Malia was like raised by wolves, and then she becomes like human, or like she's a werewolf. She comes into the human world, and it's like kind of like the what is that trope? Born again yesterday. I can't remember what it is. But she, you know, like you have this character that just like, it feels like they're brand new. They're brand new, but then they're like in this like adult sexy body. That's what she feels like to me, which is why I was picturing Malia. She just like acts like she is like the most virginic person ever and doesn't know anything about anything. And I say that because apparently had one time a lengthy debate with the school librarian over whether pens looked like misshapen snails or sea cucumbers. And it's like, you're 19. You don't know what those look like. I'm guessing sex education doesn't exist in this schooling system. But she just acts like she doesn't know a goddamn thing about how anything works. And it's just so frustrating to me. But in any case, they're watching Achilles and Patro. So let's talk about them. We get some stats that flash that talk about the both of them. So let me read to you exactly how they're described. Oh, and by the way, they are referred to as the Crimson Duo, and they're also chthonic. So Achilles is the son of Ares and a human, and I should point out that demigods, what we would normally refer to as demigods, are called mutts in this book. Yikes. And then Patro is also a mutt, but house of Aphrodite. He is the son of Aphrodite and a human. So this is the stats that show up for Patro. Nicknames, Patro, well, full name Patroclus, the son of sex, the leader of the Crimson Duo, the ideal man, and Achilles' handler. He's chthonic. He is 6'4", 240 pounds, born on August 23rd of 2078. So does that make him a Leo or a Virgo? I'm not quite sure. His powers are mental. Basically, he can read when people are lying to him. We get that later on. And his animal protector is a Nemean jaguar. His net worth, because we're told what his net worth is $3.5 billion. Okay. Anyways, how he's described: short, wavy black hair, full crimson lips, long dark eyelashes, black skin. Black skin? Is he one of us? Hollowed cheeks and a deep dimple. And he is constantly, 3 times in this book, referred to as looking as this, like the statue of David. I have him as the statue of David. Okay, great. Here we go. Okay, now Achilles. Let's talk about him. Oh my God. So this is how he's introduced. A student's going, holy crap, it's him. It's Achilles. Everyone knew Achilles. He was the only Spartan who wore a muzzle. I have him here represented as Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. All right, he wears a muzzle. Apparently, the Spartan Federation had constrained him after his terrifying performance in the SGC, which is that gladiator-style fighting situation, 3 years ago because his voice powers did one thing: torture. He'd put dozens of creatures into a coma with merely a few words. He was a monster among monsters, which made sense. The House of Ares was nicknamed for the House of War for a reason. Okay. Then we get his stats. Name Achilles, nicknamed the Son of War, the Killer, the Beast of the Crimson Duo. He is the son of Ares and a human, chthonic. He's 6'7", 290 pounds. March 23rd, 2077. He's a Pisces? Maybe? Voice torture abilities. His animal protector's a wolf. And he's worth $3 billion. Not as much as Patro. He's basically broke. So we see them on the screen, blah, blah, blah. This is our first introduction to them. I gotta keep bringing y'all back here, okay? This is our first introduction to them. Can you even see it? I don't know. We'll find out. As I said, Alexis is, I should be using this pointing stick, okay? This is my back scratcher. Alexis, okay? She is in her final year of school. She is going to be taking the Spartan merit test, okay? And this is a test that all students take in their final year in order to graduate. She is very worried about getting high marks because she wants to go to college and get into one of the few remaining good schools in the United States, so that can give her opportunities so that she can continue to provide for Charlie, okay? So we fast forward a little bit. She is taking this exam. At the end of the exam, you have to prick your finger and drop blood. I think they're testing to see if there's anyone who's secretly a Spartan or something like that. She does this, right? And the blood starts sizzling. And the teacher's like, oh shit. Completely white in the face, okay? Blood drains, okay? She shows it to another teacher. Again, everyone's starting to whisper what's going on. They call 2 Spartans to show up, okay? And they see that it is a girl, and Alexis is a girl, and they are basically very rude to her and accusing her of buying Spartan blood from the black market or whatever in order to trick this test and make people think that she's a Spartan so that she can meet Patro and Achilles, because apparently they're 2 hot boys, and all of these stupid human girls are just going to these lengths in order to meet them. So they're basically calling her a stupid little girl doing this. So they inject her with some sort of serum. Obviously without her permission, they just kind of inject it. And they say, if you're human, you're gonna die in 3 minutes. If you're still alive in 3 minutes, that means you're a Spartan. And again, they don't really believe that she might be a Spartan. But 3 minutes rolls around and she's still alive. And they're like, oh shit. And I think it's important to mention that there are not that many female Spartans around, okay? It's actually quite rare. And yeah, women are also, this is a very deeply misogynistic place, which I guess Sparta IRL was probably deeply misogynistic, but the Spartan world here, very deeply misogynistic. They don't let women fight. I think they're supposed to be exalted as this pure, whatever. But in any case, they're really rare also, because I think the Spartans, in particular the Olympians, which, I accidentally erased some of this, the Olympians have fertility issues. So what they do when they find out that, she's actually probably an abandoned mutt, they magically teleport her into the middle of this cave situation where coincidentally the beginning of the Spartan Academy is about to start, okay? Mind you, this is all in the span of 10 minutes, okay? Between when she drops her blood onto the exam to the serum being injected to her and then her getting teleported here, okay? She hasn't even had a chance to really think about the fact that, oh shit, I'm a Spartan. Charlie's still, he's back there. He don't know what's going on. Nyx is with her, of course. She's just permanently attached to her. She comes here. They're in the middle of it. Zeus is there. I guess I can introduce him. He doesn't really matter, by the way. I'm gonna put him here again because he doesn't really matter. But Zeus is there. He's like, welcome to the whatever, the massacre. It's called the massacre. Welcome. This is the beginning of the entrance into the Spartan Academy. And he's doing like his rah-rah, this is Sparta speech. Mind you, she still doesn't know what's going on. All of a sudden, everybody's killing each other. Okay? This is the massacre. Basically, whoever survives in this allotted time period gets to go into the Spartan Academy. So suddenly, everyone's fighting. And she's like, holy shit. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Everyone's fighting around her. And so she's like, all right, whatever, I'm fighting. She's beating people up, whatever. She gets towards the end and there's these 3 guys that are like coming after her. And she's like, oh shit, I don't think I'm gonna win against them. And they're like about to kill her. There's this other guy that she sees. His name is Drex. He's like over here. And she's over here, and these 3 guys are coming over here. And these guys are coming, and suddenly there's like a fog, and then these 3 guys are like writhing in pain on the floor. And she thinks that she sees Drex having red eyes. And I should mention another distinguishing factor of the Chthonic gods is that they have red eyes when they use their powers. So she thinks that she sees red eyes, and she's like, oh, Drex must be a Chthonic. And she keeps this to herself because it seems like none of the gods know that there are any Chthonics in this academy right now, in this batch of academy students. But she thinks that he saved her and that he is responsible for the death of these 3 guys that were coming to attack her. Okay? Let's put a second pin in that. Massacre's over. She's still standing. There's 9 other students. So 10 students total, including Drex, ends up getting into this academy, and they go immediately, well, almost immediately there. Each student has a Spartan mentor, like a full-fledged Spartan member, mentor. And of course, Alexis finds out that her Spartan mentors are going to be the Crimson Duo themselves, Achilles and Patra. They're very mean to her. They don't like her. Oh, by the way, Achilles doesn't speak, so the way that he and Patra communicate with each other is through sign language. And so obviously she knows what's going on, but they don't realize that she understands sign language. So there's some scenes kind of, not really, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna try to go quickly through this recap because I feel like I've been talking forever. And honestly, like, not that much really happens in this book. But she joins the academy. They're her mentors. They're annoyed at the fact that she is their mentee because she is an abandoned mutt. She doesn't have any powers as far as she's aware, and is very disconnected from the Spartan world, so she doesn't really know anything. Apparently, in order to become like a general with the Spartans, your mentee has to successfully pass through the Spartan Academy, which goes on for about 9 months. It's like August, not even 6 months, maybe like August to, or July to January. So they're like, this bitch is gonna die and we're not gonna become generals. So they're just like really mean to her, but whatever. Also, I should just point out, these 2 are fucking, okay? Like, they're banging each other. They are clearly into each other. She doesn't realize this until, quite frankly, way too long or far in the book. There are multiple scenes where, so let me go back. When you go to the academy, you're there and you cannot sleep, eat, drink, shower, nothing. Okay, except they all inevitably fall asleep because, like, you can't not fall asleep, right? So they're like, well, if you're a Spartan, whatever, like, you can go further without having all these things. So they're just constantly, they're suffering. It's basically like an extreme test of endurance, and they're also like learning as well. But like every 2 weeks or so, they get like a weekend break where they can go to the home of their mentors and like eat, shower, whatever. So like there are multiple times where she's like back on her little break at their house, and she is in her bed and she hears weird grunting, and she doesn't realize what it is because, again, she is this weird, pure, innocent, virginic, that's not even a word, but it's a word now, character who doesn't know how anything works, apparently. And then she eventually realizes that they're banging. So there's that. Anyway, so she goes to the academy. It's hell. There's a General Cleandro. He doesn't matter, so he's not even on the board, who basically, like, anytime someone gets a question wrong, he's like, all right, it's time to do, what is it called? I forget what it's called, but basically they have to, like, run a lap around a mountain and then swim across the river Styx. It's not really the river Styx, but whatever. There's a lot of rough stuff. So this is where we get introduced to 2 additional characters. Okay, the first is Augustus, who is the heir to House of Ares. So he's the son of Ares and somebody. He is the son of Ares and Aphrodite, and he's the heir to House Ares. He's described, you know what? I think I highlighted this section. A man entered. His energy was vicious. Unlike with Pine, another professor in this school, he doesn't matter. Everyone in the room immediately sat up straight, even General Cleandro. It was him, the infamous assassin, rumored to have dark powers, the heir to House of Ares, Augustus. The son of Ares and Aphrodite looked more like a savage warrior than a professor. Evil incarnate. That is a phrase that gets repeated multiple times throughout this book. A thick scar slashed across the top of his right sharp cheekbone and ended on his nose. It matched the color of his spiky, ruby-covered crown. I rubbed at my hair-tied covered wrists. Fear made it hard for me to breathe. He loomed high above us with perfect posture. He was about Achilles' height, and his powerful muscles bunched as he walked into the classroom. His hands, the size of dinner plates, clenched into fists. He had a commanding aura. Oh my God. Okay. I forgot about another thing that I want to talk about, but I'll save that for later. Suddenly, the description of sinful handsomeness, disturbed powers, and divine rage made perfect sense. It fit him. Augustus was a frightening amalgamation of sharp edges. Dark stubble covered a harsh, square jaw. Tan skin stretched across wide cheekbones. Shadows pooled in the hollows of his cheeks. His black eyes were smoldering, lips curved viciously. A severe center part split his two-toned hair, half black, half white, which was pulled back into a long, silky ponytail. Absurd. Absolutely absurd. So I was looking for pictures of men with half white, half black hair, and I found this hilarious photo, stock photo, I think, that's selling this wig, and I was like, perfect. This is Augustus now. Okay. Professor Augustus. During one of their little, what is it called? It's called a circuit. That's what their punishment is when someone gets a question wrong. They have to do like a lap around this mountain and then swim across the river Styx. So they're doing their very first circuit after someone got a question wrong with Professor Pine, who again doesn't matter really. And after, she's struggling to do this because she is someone who grew up starving and doesn't have a lot of physical strength. And she doesn't have any time to prepare for this. They go across the river Styx. They have to swim. And the person there who is guarding the river and is like chasing them down, he's like an added factor to this hell circuit, is Charon. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. In the book, it's spelled Charon. I think it's also Charon in Greek mythology. He's like that old dude that like has the boat on the river Styx. Except here he is a hot young man. But of course, I had to go with accuracy here. So we have I'm calling him Karen in honor of the singular chuckle that this book got out of me, because Alexis didn't know how to pronounce his name and she kept calling him Karen. I thought it was really funny. So I'm adding him here. I'm moving the Titans over here because it doesn't really matter. So we have him here. Okay, so she's swimming, and during the mountain part of the circuit, she meets a student named Christos, who is very cheery. He's a son of Zeus. And so they're going swimming, and it's Karen's job to like be like, "Woo, I'm gonna get you." And so they're swimming, and they're trying to run away from him, or swim away from him rather. And then Christos suddenly dies. He's like struggling, and Alexis thinks that it's Karen who did this. And she's like, oh shit, I gotta stay away from this dude because he just killed this student. Which many students die in this, by the way. Spoiler warning, like 4 students die by the end of this book. And so she's like, oh shit, I'm putting a 3rd pin on this death, okay? So she gets to the circuit, then she meets Augustus. He hates her because she's a woman. And he thinks that she has some sort of feminist agenda in joining the Spartan Academy because it's for men and they allow her to be a part of it for whatever reason. I don't know. And so he just spends this whole book putting all of these ideas and beliefs that he assumes that she has, even though, like I said, within the span of 10 minutes, she was taking her merits test and then was suddenly in the massacre. Like, she just found out that she's a Spartan. She has no idea what's going on. She had no choice in joining this academy, and yet he's constantly being a fucking weirdo. Don't like that. So let's talk about some relationship things here. I already mentioned that Achilles and Patro are together, romantically and biblically. Okay. Augustus and Karen are also maybe together. I'm not quite sure. They're definitely partners in crime, but I'm not quite sure if there's also potentially a romantic thing going on here. But I should point out that throughout this book, it is primarily in Alexis's POV. But we get one-off chapters that are from Patro's perspective, Augustus's perspective, and Karen's perspective, sprinkled throughout, okay? Most of it seems like a rehash of certain things, but then we get like little inklings that there's some sort of scheming afoot between Augustus and Karen. They're planning something here. And we start to realize that what they're planning has something to do with the marriage law, the new marriage law. So Karen has just turned 26, so he has to get married. Augustus is 31 already, so he also has to get married, okay? And remember, they have to marry someone from the Olympian houses, but they are chthonic supremacists, okay? They think that the Olympians are weak little bitches, and they don't want to have to marry anyone from there. So they're scheming something. Achilles and Patro, they're just kind of around. Patro they're also friends with Karen and Augustus because, you know, they're like the quad of chthonics, you know? But Patro is like, I think something's going on here, but I don't know what. And remember I said this is why choose? I thought it was gonna be why choose between the 4 of them, but that doesn't seem to be the case. But we'll get to that later. So Alexis is going through the academy. She's suffering. She's like on the verge of death constantly. And then she'll get her little breaks where she goes and visits Achilles and Patro, her mentors. Are they doing any mentoring? No. They're just kind of being mean to her. She kind of carries on going through class. Augustus continues to think that she's some sort of feminist icon. I don't know. It's weird. One notable thing that happens, I'd say a few months in, is that the students begin to have access to something. What is it called? Like the pavilion or something. It happens like once every month. They go out of the academy, which is occurring like in a cave. I don't know. So they go out into this area and it's just a bunch of Spartans having a jolly good time. It's basically like a giant orgy party, okay? And sirens, one of the creatures that we get introduced to, I should have gotten a little siren thing, but it doesn't matter. Mind you, these are not sirens like the mermaid variety. This is the Greek variety where they are like kind of winged creatures. I didn't realize that because I was confused on how they were having coitus with the Spartans, if they were mer people. But anyways, this is also a time for me to explain about the Spartans and their relationship with sex. This is how Alexis describes the Spartans towards the beginning of the book. Since the Spartans were also known for having sex with anyone and everyone, okay, bisexual / pansexual icons, they had no biases about gender and usually dated, in parentheses, were slutty, with multiple people at once. It was a fad for humans to emulate their sexually free lifestyle. So, Alexis is a prude and also thinks that the Spartans are sluts because they like to sleep with people of a variety of genders. So we do have some biphobia in here. Gnarly. But she's at this little party situation and she meets some sirens and she realizes that she can actually understand the sirens, which Spartans have not been able to. The sirens speak their own language, but they have not been able to communicate with the Spartans. The Spartans have not learned this language. And so the sirens are like crying because they're like, oh my God, we can actually communicate with you. You can understand us. So she becomes friends with these group of sirens at this party. They're hanging out, having a good time. They're drinking, they're eating. She realizes that the food that she's eating has ambrosia in it. And she's feeling a little silly goofy. And the sirens are like, it's okay. Like, ambrosia doesn't usually hit people as hard if they are mutts. But it hits her pretty hard. Anyways, she's having a good time. She decides she's gonna they're calling her a prude and making fun of her. She decides she's gonna have a little striptease situation. And who sees her? Karen, first of all, who's there playing the piano while constantly fighting off people who are trying to have sex with him. What an image. He sees her, he's getting angry. He's about to do something until Augustus barrels through the crowd and puts her over his shoulder and takes her away. And it's like basically calling her a dirty little slut. In a not fun way. And she's like, what the fuck? And so the sirens are trying to protect her. And they try to stop him. He punches them away. She bleeds a little bit. In any case, he takes her away. She decides that she's never going to go back there. Do you want to know why? She receives a box the next day. Do you want to know what's in this box? Body parts. It's one of her siren friends. So she thinks that he killed one of the sirens because of the situation. So she's stressed the fuck out. Okay, let's put our fourth pin in that. We carry on. Also, what's happening after this party is that she begins receiving messages, letters, that are saying that she needs to leave. She needs to leave the academy or bad things are gonna happen.
You need to leave!
She ignores this first letter. She doesn't really think much of it. They're running another circuit, okay? Sometime after this party. And all of a sudden, a Titan shows up on this mountain. And this is very concerning. Well, one, because they're dangerous. But two, this is the first time in a long time that a Titan has shown up in Spartan borders. So it's just all of the students running. I think it's down to like 7 or 8 students at this point. There's some people who've died, whatever. They're freaking out, they're running. She is trying to run away, and she sees one kid fall and break his leg. And so she's trying to help him, and the Titan comes, and she's trying to fight off this Titan, and she's doing an okay job. But then all of a sudden, Karen or Augustus, one of these two, I think it was Karen shows up and saves the day. But that kid, Leo, who broke his leg, he's dead. The Titan killed him. He saves Alexis. They take her back, and he's like berating her. He's like, how dare you? Oh, by the way, he's been like threatening her by saying like, if you don't survive, I'm gonna kill you throughout this whole book. It's really bizarre. And he also calls her a pet name, Carissima or something like that. I think it's like Latin for like beloved or something like that. He saves her, and he starts berating her. He's like, I told you, blah, blah, why'd you do that, blah, blah, blah. And she starts having a panic attack. And then he's like, oh shit. And then takes her to Augustus, and they're like, oh shit. And then this is their first indication that she may have had some past trauma in her life. But anyways, that happens. A little bit later, she receives another letter that's like, I told you to get the fuck out of here. Now look what happened. Leo's dead. I sent that Titan. She's like, oh shit. I have to start taking this seriously, but she doesn't. We fast forward some more. She receives, another student. His name is Maximus. He also doesn't matter, so he doesn't need to be on this board. He is like, LOL, hey, I kind of like you. And she's like, wait, I kind of like you too. They have a cute little kiss. The next day, he's gone. He hasn't shown up. They call his mentor. He's like, I don't know what happened. Later that night, she finds his body in the library. He's dead. She thinks, again, Augustus did this. Okay? She's thinking that he's jealous or something. Anyways, he's dead. Bodies are slowly making their way. There's a lot of them. And she's stressed out about this again. So he's dead. Meanwhile, she's also been receiving like random gifts, like a blanket and a sweater. Let's put a pin in that. Okay. Nothing really interesting happens except that she goes back to, I almost said Bane, Achilles and Patro's house one last time. And there she meets Helen. Helen, I almost didn't put her on this board because she also doesn't matter, but she plays a key part later on. So I'm gonna kind of put her off to the side here. This is Helen. She is the heir of Aphrodite. She is the daughter of Aphrodite and Ares, I guess? I don't know. She's the heir of Aphrodite. She is like a full Spartan. She's like 16 years old. She is the half-sister of Patro and a full sister of Augustus, okay? And she and Alexis hit it off. This is like her first like girlfriend. Great. She goes back to finish up school. It goes by, literally there's a chapter that's like 2 months later. It ends like not with a bang, but with a whimper, whatever. She's done. She survived. It's over. She goes back here. Recovers. There is going to be a ball where she officially passes and becomes immortal, something or another. So we're at the ball. Achilles, Patro, Augustus, Karen. They're there. This is a masquerade ball. They have giant heads of animals on their head. They see her, they dance with her. It's like a weird little thing. She doesn't realize it's them, even though Karen's calling her the pet name that only he has been calling her. It's a weird situation. She kind of stumbles away. She sees Helen. She's like, wow, blah, 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 chit chat. All of a sudden, she's talking to Professor Pine, which I know I said he's not important, but I guess he does come up here. She's talking with him. All of a sudden, someone comes up behind him, cuts his neck. He's dead. Chaos ensues. Someone's yelling that there's titans. And then the chapter ends. She's passed out. Suddenly she's awake. She's tied up in a cave elsewhere. Who's also there tied up? Helen, for whatever reason, okay? Introduction to a character who didn't matter up until right at this very moment. We've heard about him. He's the heir of Zeus. His name is Theros. I have him here as Paul Walker. Sorry to Paul Walker, also RIP. I just thought he sounded like a generic, attractive blonde man. So I have young Paul Walker here again, RIP. Theros is the son of Zeus. I should probably mention to you that her history is a mystery. But for some reason, Augustus and other people seem to believe that she's a mutt of Zeus, so that her father is Zeus and her mother is some random human. Where they come up with this idea, I have no idea. I don't know what has led them to believe that she is the daughter of Zeus over here. I don't know why. But the prevailing theory amongst them all apparently is that she's a Zeus mutt. So she talks with Zeus when she's at that orgy party. And he's like, you're great, ha ha ha. Maybe if you do really well, maybe I'll make you the heir to my house. Okay? Shortly after that is when she starts receiving these threatening letters. Who were these threatening letters from? Theros, the heir of Zeus. Okay? His mom is Hera. Father Zeus, he's the heir. Okay? He is jealous. He thinks that she's about to usurp his throne. Okay? So he's been trying to get rid of her this whole time. So he's the one who kidnapped her and Helen. I don't think he realized that he had kidnapped Helen. So this is a problem, a political problem. And also, I think Maximus. I don't really remember how Maximus plays into all of this, but whatever. So she manages to get away. And another thing that I forgot to mention is that the Spartans can teleport, like only the best Spartans. And she never learned how to do it, but suddenly she can. And she manages to get out, and she really fucked up her wrists in order to get out of the restraints. She saves Helen, teleports them back to the party. Everyone was like, oh, where were you? Also, why are you a hot mess right now? Theros has already gone back to the party. She sees him, and she's like, it's on sight. She tries to kill him. Everyone is like, whoa, 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 what's going on? What's going on? Her eyes are red. He's writhing in pain. She hasn't even touched him. Patro is there. He comes up to her and he's telling her, breathe, calm down. Like, you're gonna kill him if you don't stop using your power. He has figured out. Augustus, all of them already know. They figured out what's going on with old girl, okay? Turns out, she's actually a chthonic. Remember, they're the ones whose eyes are turn red when they're using their power. Their power is used to cause pain to others. It turns out when her blood touches someone, she can use that to cause them pain and or kill them. So let's go back to our pins. Pin number 1, way back when she was a child and her mother was dying, presumably by a Titan. No, it was actually her. Her mother was trying to attack her. She was scratching her. Her blood got onto her mom. And the last thing her mom says when she dies is, what are those red eyes? Pin number 2, the massacre. Those 3 guys are coming to go and attack her. She thinks it was Drex, remember Drex, who killed them. But no, it was her. Obviously she's bloody. She got her blood on them. She killed them. Pin number 3, the first time she's running the circuit, she's in the river Styx. That kid named Christos starts dying. Her blood got on him. This is when Karen figured out that she's a chthonic, because he was watching this whole thing and he was like, wait a minute. And we get it from his perspective. Pin number 4, the siren who tried to save her after that party from Augustus. She had gotten her blood on that siren. She accidentally killed that siren. So it turns out that Alexis has been accidentally killing people this whole time. She's a chthonic. She has deadly powers based off of her blood. Okay, so Patro is telling her to calm down. She does. Patro is like, this is a chthonic air. Okay. This is the point where I started laughing hysterically to the point where I was actually crying. Like, I took a picture of myself. I'm not going to insert it. But I was crying and I like smudged all of my makeup because it was so fucking stupid. Okay? And I feel like this probably sounds entertaining to you right now. And that's because of me. Okay? Sorry to say it. I'm making this story a lot more interesting in the way that I'm presenting it. And even then, this is all a hot mess. Okay? So... Patro is like, this is a chthonic air. You know what? Let me read this to you, actually. So Patro says she's a powerful chthonic heiress and she saved Helen. She's a hero. She's like, oh shit. She's understanding like what's going on now. She's like running through the 4 points that I told you about her powers. And then Zeus is there. Hades is there. All the gods are there, right? Because this is like the big ball thing situation. So Hades goes... But that's not possible, Hades said loudly, and all of Sparta fell silent. She can't be a chthonic heiress. We would know if a child was birthed to... He stopped talking and reared back. The face of a haunted man. Zeus! He bellowed abruptly. You said she was dead. You said you knew for a fact that the Titans killed her. We held a funeral together. Zeus stepped forward, electricity sparkling all around. Wait, I should add Zeus and Persephone to the wall before I carry on. Hades. I think I said Zeus and Persephone. I meant Hades. Hades, yes, it's the Hercules version. Okay, they're together, married, blah, blah, blah. Zeus steps forward. Electricity sparkling all around. She was! Vico of the House of Hermes, where are you? Explain yourself. An older man jogged forward. Patro, Hades ordered. Touch him right now. We need to know if he's lying. Remember, Patro can tell when people are lying. My mentor nodded and hurried to the man who'd stepped forward. Achilles stood protectively at his heel like a muzzled sentinel. Kneel, Zeus commanded, and Vico fell to his knees. Explain exactly what happened the day Hercules was killed. Storm gray eyes roiled with fury. I sat up straighter. Hercules was the 8-letter word engraved on the fabric I'd been found in as a baby. It was a name, not a label. The hairs on my arms stood up. A bad feeling rolled through me. Everything was happening in slow motion, like I was in the middle of a car crash. Vico raised his head. There was a Titan attack at the house of Zeus during a Federation meeting. The Spartans were all meeting in the other room, and I had just arrived and was in the hall. Hercules' nurses died in front of me. In the chaos, I grabbed the baby and leapt. I ended up in a rural wasteland. Then there was blood everywhere, and I was convulsing. I passed out. When I woke up, I was alone, and the baby was gone. I assumed it had been killed by a Titan or a wild creature. Patro looked up, eyes blazing red. He's telling the truth. You said you saw the baby die, Zeus bellowed as he rounded on Vico. Vico shook his head. I thought I did. It was an unprotected baby. There was blood and monsters attacking. It's what I thought happened. That's the truth, Patro announced, eyes still blood red. Zeus turned to Hades, who had fog pouring off of him. They shared a long look. At that moment, the scar on my sternum prickled and I rubbed it. My hand stilled. I had the mark since I was a baby. It's a perfect straight line. Someone tried to stab me. Shivers traveled down my spine, and my gut told me that Vico's story wasn't the entire truth. Something else was going on here, something bigger than that was being said. Zeus's voice rang out, his gaze still locked on Hades. Vico, you withheld information about the kidnapping of my goddaughter. You will be dealt with later. Zeus's goddaughter. Zeus's goddaughter Hercules. Wait, if he's my godfather, Then who's my... We should just quickly add Hercules onto the board. Just add this here since they are one and the same. Hades walked toward me. His midnight black eyes and tall, lean build were uncannily familiar. Snow swirled around him. He stopped in front of where I was sitting, then fell to his knees. Daughter, is that really you? Tears shone in his eyes, and long pale fingers shook as they reached slowly for a curl that had escaped. You look so much like your mother. Hercules! Persephone flung herself to her knees before me. Her dark gold skin was a familiar shade. Her mane of blonde curls matched mine. It was just lighter. Wide blue eyes stared at me as she clutched my face, then burst into sobs. They made my baby do the crucible. Oh, that's the school, the Spartan school thing, is whatever. She wailed as she clutched me. You poor darling angel. She brushed curls back off of my forehead. You must have been so scared. I stared back at her, frozen, unable to find any words. She held me like she loved me. No one had ever done that before. Mom? Dad? Tears streamed down my cheeks. They were both holding me with such tender emotions, and I was kneeling in their arms, a monster. Alexis is Hercules. Now, you recall at the beginning I said that this book was being described as a gender-bent Hercules, so it was only fair for all of us to assume that she was Hercules, but this information was presented to us as if it was a big reveal, okay? Even more ridiculous is that Alexis is Hercules, who is not the child of Zeus, but instead the child of Hades and Persephone. Hercules is the child of Persephone and Hades. Okay, we have this discovered. Fast forward, Alexis goes, gets Charlie. Okay, whatever. She comes back, and recall that little marriage thing that was going on, the marriage law, and that Augustus and Karen were coming up. They were scheming with a little thing. Turns out that they knew that she was Hercules. And so because she, as an heiress, a Chthonic heiress, was forced to participate in the academy, she, to appease them, Zeus is like, she can marry whoever, she can marry an Olympian. And they're like, no. And then they sweep in. What did they say? So Hades is like, you dare propose a betrothal with a boy who hurt her and Helen. Oh yeah, he was like, oh yeah, you can marry my son. And they're all like, fuck no. A bunch of people are like, oh, we'll marry her. Karen steps forward. He sauntered across the arena, fur cape dragging through the sand, silver crown jagged atop his head. She's already betrothed. She's already betrothed to me and my partner, Augustus. In accordance with the new marriage law, she's the one we've decided to wed. Hades is like, the fuck? Alexis is also like, the fuck? You remember how I said that she was receiving like random gifts like the sweater and the blanket and stuff like that? Turns out in their world, you send gifts as like betrothal gifts, and if the person accepts, then they're accepting the betrothal. So she used the sweater, she used the blanket. Therefore, she accepted this betrothal that she didn't know about. They were basically taking advantage of the fact that she didn't know Spartan marriage customs, and they got away with betrothing to her. She's a Chthonic. They get to stay in their little Chthonic happy bubble, okay? What happens? She ends up marrying them. She does. She can't find a way out of it. They get married, and then they bang, kind of. They have oral sex. And it's the most mind-blowing experience, as it is with these books, for her. And then she's upset, you know, at the end. She's like, fuck, like, I'm gonna kill them. And the book ended. So, that was it. Was a wild time. I hated every minute of it. I thought it was very bad. One thing that I didn't mention was the writing. This book uses parentheticals like nobody's fucking business. It's so unnecessary. I read you a quote where she was talking about the Spartans being slutty, and it was like, in parentheses, they're slutty. That happens constantly throughout the book, okay? Just constantly like blah, 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 in parentheses, blah, 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 in parentheses. Why? I'm gonna share like screenshots so that you can see what I mean. But there's so many parentheticals, it is bad. The writing is just so poor, in my opinion. The use of Greek mythology I found to be very baffling. One, since when was Hercules ever this child of Persephone and Hades? What are we doing here? Number two, a random thing. Artemis apparently has children. But when did that happen? There's just a lot where it feels like Greek mythology, and I guess to an extent Roman mythology, is just being used as a place setting. It's background. It's just there, but none of it makes any sense, which I come back to the point where the author, in all of her bios, consistently talks about how she has a classics degree, okay? I feel like if you're putting that out there and constantly bringing up an association with this book that's based on Greek mythology, you're kind of posturing yourself as someone who has knowledge, who is maybe more experienced than the average person. And yet I wonder, what the fuck was all of this? I don't understand it. We don't get like any world building really at all. Like I said, what's happening with the rest of the world? What's happening in the human world? Like, does Olympus exist? What is going on? I don't know what's going on. I don't think the author knows what's going on, sorry to say. But it's just, it's mind-boggling. Where's Kronos? He keeps getting mentioned. Is he not a Titan? Like I said, there is characters with disability in this book. Alexis has a stutter. Charlie is mute. And Karen actually has a severe leg injury that is causing him chronic pain. And all of these things are just kind of brought up and then not done. It doesn't impact them at all. I also forgot to mention that Alexis is blind in one eye and deaf in one ear because of the abuse that she experienced as a child from her foster parents. And that does not seem to hinder her at all. Like, it gets brought up occasionally, the fact that she has a blind eye and a deaf ear, but that does not impact her. Like, none of these characters that have a disability, it's just like thrown in and done nothing with. It doesn't actually impact them. It doesn't seem like it's actually a part of their character. There are times where there's like a lot of loud noise happening around Alexis, where she says that her hearing ear is like buzzing. And it's like, at a certain point, she's like functionally deaf occasionally throughout this book. And that just doesn't seem to impact her ability to move through this world at all. So it just feels like it was used almost to add, I don't know, personality or something, except it doesn't feel like it's a part of them. I don't really understand what was going on with any of this. What else? It's just the world building. What was the plot? She was just going through this school. Not much was happening. Girl was constantly on the verge of death, always. She doesn't really seem to have much growth until the very end of the book, where suddenly she's able to teleport and also has discovered her powers. Who's Charlie? Where did he come from? Why does he have yellow eyes? Who's Nyx? I haven't really talked much about her because, like I said, she's just there as like random comedic relief and also to give really bad romantic advice. to Alexis. She's just there. No one else can see her. And oh, also the reason why she's able to speak with the sirens and Nyx is because she is part creature, because I guess Persephone is part god, part creature. I don't know. But yeah, who's Nyx? At one point she mentions that she's technically can't bond and become her animal familiar because she's bonded to somebody else. We don't know who. But she remains with Alexis nevertheless. Oh, by the way, them two, Patro and Achilles, they're pissed about this marriage thing here between Augustus, Karen, and Alexis. They're upset and they're trying to find a way to save her. So of course they're in love with her. I thought it was going to be a 4-way situation, but it seems like it's two duos about to fight each other in the next book. I don't know. This book was nonsensical. I had a horrible time, but I also had a fun time complaining about it to my friends, I will say. But that was The Blood of Hercules. I will not be reading the next book, probably. I say probably because curiosity often gets the better of me, and I am kind of curious to see what happens in the next book, but I probably won't read it. If I do, I'll let you know about it. But that's all I have for you today.
Psych!
Hello. This is the second day of me filming. I thought I wrapped up yesterday, but I recalled some points that I never got around to talking about, mainly because I was really stressed out because my camera kept dying. And I just was trying to wrap things up. But I'm back because there are several points that I actually want to address about this book. Number 1, I know I kept poking fun at Alexis's virginic purity. One thing I did want to talk about is she is, I think, asexual. The reason why I am like hesitant to actually say that is, so when I first started the book, I was thinking, okay, this girl kind of seems like she might be asexual who's sex repulsed. In particular, there's like kind of like a throwaway, really weird throwaway line where Alexis is talking about how the librarian at her high school was her hero because the librarian caught a boy in the library getting, a hand situation. And the librarian shot his dick.
Huh?
And I was like, that's insane. But I was like, okay, maybe she's just like sex repulsed, she's asexual, she doesn't care. The thing is, I'm not sure that the author like actually is intending for the character to be asexual or really understands what asexuality is. It's just really bizarre because throughout the book, it's clear that she's experiencing like arousal, which of course you can experience that if you're asexual, but she just doesn't know what it is. It's like this kind of back and forth situation where on one hand it seems like she does understand how sex works and all of that stuff and is just not interested, and then there are other times where it just feels like she has no idea what the fuck is going on, and it's very confusing. I don't know. She at one point even describes herself as asexual, but then like 2 lines later it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know what is supposed to be going on with her character. Again, this is a wide choose situation, and she did have sexual situations at the end of this book, and I'm assuming that's going to carry on. Again, just because you have sex doesn't mean you're not asexual. But it felt like bad representation to me, personally. I don't know. If you are asexual and you happen to have read this book, I would like to know your thoughts on how that was handled. I was struggling with this phrase in previous clips, but born again yesterday is what I was talking about, where she just is like incredibly innocent and naive and has no idea what's going on with anything ever, despite the fact that she's had like very harsh circumstances growing up. You would think that would kind of make her more mature, and have some street smarts and just kind of understand more things about the world than perhaps other people her age. But no, she just seems incredibly stupid. I don't understand her. She doesn't know what's going on, despite the fact that she's written smutty fanfic herself, but doesn't understand what sex is or what the feeling of arousal is. I don't know. It was just really weird. She kept describing like this weird like sensation in my stomach, and I'm like, girl, like Okay, the next point I wanted to touch on is I even question whether this book is even romantic-y, to be quite honest. There is no romantic development at all in this entire book. Arguably, the romance isn't even a major part of this book in particular. Like, maybe it will be in the later series, but this book is just basically her on the verge of death constantly, okay? And then random situations that pop up, but she is not developing feelings for any of these people. Like, she is attracted to them, she thinks they're attractive, but in her mind, she's like, these guys are mean. She's not actually developing feelings, she's not getting to know any of them, and they're not getting to know her. Like, it takes until the very end of the book for them to even clock that maybe she's had some traumatic past situation. And then they're like, oh, we need to protect her. What? And we get Patro, Augustus's, and Karen's point of view occasionally throughout this book, and it's just like all of a sudden they're just like obsessed with her. Like, I wouldn't even say that they're in love with her, even though that's what this book is trying to tell us is what's going on, but they're just suddenly obsessed with her because she's not like other girls. She's a random girl that's just showed up in this world where there's very few girls. Like, the only person who I can kind of like believe is Karen, because he kind of views her as like a kindred spirit a little bit. I don't know. Where was the romance? Where was the romantic development? They don't know anything about each other. How is this a romantasy? I don't know. The next point I wanted to make was about Alexis herself, which I've already complained a lot about how her character was written, but also she remains pretty much the same person throughout this whole book, which I've enjoyed books where there's kind of like a static character, where they're not going through a lot of character development, but like the story is kind of like a snapshot in their life. Or someone who already is like kind of found themselves. Like, for example, Hercules from To Shape a Dragon's Breath, she doesn't really change much over the course of the book, but she is already like so aware of who she is. She already has her mind formed. She is very headstrong and very in tune with her beliefs and her morals, her ethics, her culture. And so I think a character like that who already feels like they're developed makes sense to be kind of static. But her, like, there's nothing going on with her. There's nothing at all going on with her. She doesn't really have much of a personality, and she doesn't change at all. Like, she doesn't even change, like, in terms of growing her powers or anything. She doesn't discover that she has powers until the very end of the book. There's no training sequence or anything. She's not, like, we don't really get to see all that much that she's learning at the school. We don't see her even really get stronger throughout the course of the book as she is in this situation where there's so much physical activity, partially because they're all being starved and they have lack of sleep and water, and they're all like constantly on the verge of death. But like, even then, like, so she just doesn't like get stronger at all from like doing all this physical activity at this school. There's just nothing going on here. Her relationships to like Nyx, for example, who's the only one who's like consistently there throughout the book, who remains with her and knows her, who has known her for a long time. Their relationship remains the same. I mean, Charlie's just, he's not really in this book. Yeah, it's just, nothing is going on. It's very uninteresting to read because she's not really changing or growing or developing or even like regressing. There's just no movement at all with her character. And I kind of touched on this, on how there just wasn't a lot of world building, but it really does feel like the Greek mythology is just window dressing for this book. It doesn't care to engage with much of the mythology at all or understanding how this world works. I mean, for a retelling, it's not really a retelling. I mean, I feel like there would need to be some established things from the original myth that you're attempting to retell. It just like, I don't even know what's going on, to be quite honest. And then this just leads to like an issue that I have again with the romantasy subgenre in general, is that the lack of world building And I know I love world building. That is my bread and butter. That is part of the reason why I love the fantasy genre so much. I love world building and getting immersed in the world. So I know that not all people are like me. I understand that like not every book needs to have like amazing world building that's very detailed and fleshed out. But with a lot of these romantasy books, and in this book in particular, there's just no world building at all. It feels so empty. It just feels like we're only here with these characters. Nobody else is there. Nothing else is going on. I mean, I think just even adding a little more detail about what's happening in the rest of the United States or the world would help kind of flesh things out so we get a better sense of like the dire situation for humans and maybe even the Spartans, because the Titans being there affect them too. I think it would make sense if we got a little more information, or just like some inkling that information is coming in subsequent books about why the Titans just randomly showed up in 2050. Have they always existed? Or is this brand new for everybody? Did the Spartans already know of the existence of the Titans? Or is this new for them as well? We have no idea why they showed up, who they are, what their purpose is, what their objective is. They just showed up and started wreaking havoc, and it just seems like no one seems to care to figure out why. I think that would probably go a long way instead of just creating some sort of assembly of death to fight them. But like, where are they coming from? Some information, or at least, foreshadowing, so that we know that maybe something is going on with them. Maybe they're going to lead to a bigger plot point, or just that know that more information is coming. But we don't. I have no idea what's going on. Everything was kind of like by the seat of your pants. It was just scenes, one scene after the next, without any thought about how anything is connecting with each other or how subsequent books are going to connect to what we're learning about right now. Which, again, is an issue I find in a lot of romantasy, not just this book. But it was especially prevalent here because it just felt so empty. We don't know much about the culture of the Spartans besides the fact that they're raging misogynists. We don't know, like, why does Achilles and Patro have billions of US dollars? Where is that money coming from? Did the Spartans take over the human world? Are they running the government now? Why are they billionaires? How is their money if the Titans are like destroying everything? I don't know. None of this makes much sense to me. And it's just constant disappointment at this point. And I'm on the verge of just giving up on this subgenre altogether, but I feel like there has to be something out there that's gonna work for me. But in any case, those were the additional points that I wanted to throw in here, and I'll pass it back to previous me. Let me know all your thoughts and comments and whatever down below, and I'll check y'all in the next video.